What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Oak Tree Football Channel. The 2020 NFL Draft ended a few nights ago, but I'm already getting ready for the 2021 Draft. So Mock Draft Machine makes it so you can already do your own mock draft for the 2021 NFL Draft with all the players and stuff. So let's get right into it, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think the Jaguars will get Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence. I don't think I don't know really how Minshew Mania will end up. I think Gardner Minshew can end up as like a guy who he'll end up, I think, like maybe Case Keenum, something like that, where he can start at times, but he wouldn't be your first decision. Lawrence is a really good player. I think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy this year, and he can be a great player for the Jaguars if he gets the right pieces around him. Next up is the Washington Redskins. This one wasn't too hard. I think they will take offensive tackle Penei Sewell. It's one of their biggest needs, third according to this. So Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell is one of the best offensive linemen I've ever seen in a draft. The Redskins got rid of Trent Williams, and Sewell will be the replacement. Sewell, he's allowed one sack in the past 2 seasons. He's so good for Oregon, and I think he plays left tackle. Which is where Trent Williams played, so he'll be the replacement. Next up is the Cincinnati Bengals, and they could definitely go offensive line. But I think if they took like Walker Little or Samuel Cosmi, that would be a bit of a reach. Edge rusher Gregory Rousseau is a really, really good player, and I could see them going there, but I think they're going to go Ja'Marr Chase, actually, because so the Bengals will know that wide receiver is not their biggest hole, and I agree, wide receiver is not the biggest hole for the Bengals. But if they can reunite Ja'Marr Chase with, of course, their now quarterback Joe Burrow, that could be deadly in the NFL. And eventually, they're going to need that AJ Green replacement. And Ja'Marr Chase is unbelievably talented. He's one of the best wide receivers in college. He had an unbelievable season last year. I think he's going to have an even better season this year. Well, maybe not because Joe Burrow left, but he should still have a great season this year, and that's why I have him going as the 3rd overall pick. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Next up is the Panthers. So the Panthers did just sign Teddy Bridgewater, but he's not going to be like a long-time QB that's going to be there for a long time, and I think they won't be able to resist on getting Justin Fields. Fields is one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. He's one of the favorites to win the Heisman Trophy. I don't think Fields would be a starter in his first season if it was to happen. I think he would be a backup for a year, but then eventually I think he would become the starter. He's been solid in college, but he's only played 1 season. If he has a good year this year, though, then I think he will be very high taken. And I think he will either be the 1st or 2nd quarterback taken. I think it's just going to be between him and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, obviously there can be someone like Joe Burrow who comes out of nowhere. But assuming that doesn't happen, I think this makes sense. Next up is the Jets. The Jets, okay, so there's a few things the Jets could go with. They could definitely go with cornerback because Sean Wade and Patrick Surtain are both on the board, and both those are really good corners. And Adebo is good too. I just don't think he'll go this high. They could go offensive line, like a guard maybe, or center. Creed Humphrey is a very good center. They could go there, but I think they will go edge because Gregory Rousseau is so good. He had like 15.5 sacks this year for Miami. Yeah, he's just a really good player, and I think this was a really good pick for the Jets if they were to do this. Next up is the Giants, who also it says listed as they need an edge rusher, but I think getting Basham here would be a reach. They could also go receiver. I think that if they were to go receiver, I think it would probably be Devonta Smith over Jalen Waddle, but I don't think they'll go receiver. I think they'll go linebacker because Micah Parsons is a really, really good linebacker out of Penn State. I talked about him a bit yesterday in my video on some Heisman Trophy candidates, but Parsons is a very, very good linebacker for Penn State, and I think he can continue that into the NFL with the Giants. Next up on the clock is the Detroit Lions. They need an edge rusher, but I think Basham would be a reach here. it says they need a quarterback, and I think they could be a dark horse team to get a quarterback, but I don't think they will, at least in the first round, because I mean, I know Matt Stafford's getting older and he's getting more injuries and stuff, but when he's not injured, Matt Stafford is a solid quarterback in the NFL, so that's why I don't think they'll take him. Defensive line, Marvin Wilson is a really, really good player, and they could go there. But I think they'll go wide receiver because their top two receivers are both, their contracts are both expiring this season in Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. Both their contracts are expiring, and they might let one of them go. I don't know, but like they're gonna need to get more targets for Stafford anyway. And I think they'll get Devonta Smith over Jalen Waddle. I think Smith will have a great season. I'm a bit higher on Smith than most people are. I think he's better than Jalen Waddle. I mean, that would just be a really good pick for them. Next up is the Dolphins. The Dolphins have back-to-back picks here. With the first one, I think they'll get safety. Safety is their biggest need. Javon Holland is a really solid safety, so I think they'll take him here. Holland, he's a good safety, and he would be a big help for the Dolphins. Next pick, it says their next biggest need is receiver, but I really think they'll get a running back. Because they didn't really draft a running back. I mean, I know they have Jordan Howard, and then they made the trade for who? Why am I forgetting his name now? They made the trade with the 49ers. And so, I mean, I know they did that, but Travis Etienne is just such a good running back out of Clemson. He's unbelievable. 49 touchdowns in the past 2 seasons from scrimmage, which is unreal. And he would fit well into the Dolphins' offense, I think. And the Dolphins would just be, unbelievably happy to get him. Next up is the Broncos. And the Broncos really, at this year's draft, they did not address offensive tackle until, later rounds. I'm not even sure if they drafted an offensive tackle. And there's some solid ones here in Walker Little and Cosme. I think they will take Samuel Cosme over Walker Little, just because I think Cosme will have a solid season. I really like him. I think I prefer him over Walker Little. I think Walker Little might fall a bit before the draft starts, and I think Cosme will rise a bit. Cosme is really good. I mean, the Broncos, I think they'll definitely take offensive tackle because they need to protect Drew Lock now that they gave him receivers at this year's draft, and Cosme is very good at the tackle position, so that should be a pretty easy pick for them. Next up is the Atlanta Falcons, who I could see them taking a running back. Chuba Hubbard is still on the board. Todd Gurley isn't going to be a long-term guy for them. He might only be there for 1 season before they get rid of him. It says quarterback is a need for them, but I don't think it is, especially not in the first round. I don't think they would get anyone there. They could take someone on the interior offensive line. That could help out. They could also, this is something, they could definitely take a tight end. I think Pat Freiermuth is the best tight end in this class over Kyle Pitts. So they could definitely take Kyle Pitts, Pat Freiermuth, even Brevin Jordan. But I think they're going to take an edge rusher because they didn't take Caleb Chase on in this year's draft. Even though it might be a bit of a reach, I think they will get Carlos Basham with this pick. Because I mean they need edge rusher. Basham he's a really solid edge rusher. I mean, like I said, it might be a bit of a reach, but I think they'll be willing to take him anyway. Next up is the Arizona Cardinals, and so they could also take an edge rusher, but I think it would definitely be a reach at this point if they took an edge rusher. They could take a receiver, but I don't think that's true because I think Fitzgerald might actually stay after the season. I think that's possible. They have DeAndre Hopkins. Christian Kirk is now starting to become a better player. They got Andy Isabella. I don't think they need receiver, but this might be a bit of a surprise. But I think cornerback, and I'm going to go Shaun Wade because Patrick Peterson is coming off probably his worst season in the NFL. He's 30 years old. He's just going to be regressing. And Shaun Wade is a really, really good cornerback, especially if he falls to them at 12. That would be a great pick. And just before I'm going to go to the Bears pick, I just want to point out I don't think I said this earlier, but this is not my predictions. I don't know what this order is. I think it might be Vegas odds or something. So predictions are coming. This is not my predictions. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that so you all know. Next up is the Bears, and they could go offensive line. Walker Little is still on the board. He's a very solid offensive lineman. Or they could also go safety, actually. I don't think, I'm not sure about safety. Edge rusher, I think that would definitely be a reach if they took someone here like Xavier Thomas or Aiden Hutchinson. Quarterback, they could definitely take a quarterback. So Trey Lance is from North Dakota State. He's a really good quarterback. But I'm not sure if they'll go with him. I think I expect Jamie Newman to have a really big season. And I think that the Bears might take a quarterback. So I'm actually going to have them going Jamie Newman with this pick. And now the Raiders on the clock. I also expect them to take a quarterback. They could take Purdy, who's ranked the best here. But honestly, I think Trey Lance is probably one of the best quarterbacks. He is from North Dakota State, which is an FCS school, of course. But a few years ago, we saw Carson Wentz from North Dakota State, and he was the second pick in the draft. Trey Lance is coming off a season where he had 28 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, and he had almost 3,000 passing yards, and he also went over 1,000 rushing yards, and he had over 10 touchdowns, which is some unbelievable numbers. He doesn't turn the ball over, and I think John Gruden would really like to have Trey Lance on the team. Derek Carr isn't sure. Marcus Mariota hasn't been the most trustworthy quarterback. And I think Trey Lance, I could even see Trey Lance being the third quarterback off the board. But Trey Lance, I really like Trey Lance. He's a great quarterback. He's only played one full season, though, so we're going to have to see if he does good this year. But if he does well, I think he will be a first-round quarterback from North Dakota State. Next up is the Cleveland Browns. I think this is an easy pick for them. So this isn't the biggest position of need, but they're kind of going to need interior defensive line. Marvin Wilson is still on the board. That's an easy pick. Marvin Wilson is a great player from Florida State. 6'5", 311 pounds. He's a really good player, and I think the Browns would be really, really happy to get him with this pick because that would be a steal if that happened. Marvin Wilson. I think Marvin Wilson will be like this year's Derek Brown. But yeah, he's a great player, so that would be an easy pick. Next up is the Titans. I don't know why the Titans are so low here, but I think they will take a receiver because I know A.J. Brown had a really good rookie season, but Corey Davis has not turned out how they want him to be at all, and there are definitely bigger positions of need than receiver. But I think that if they want to give Tannehill some more targets, make that just a really, really good offense with Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, and then I think they'll get Jalen Waddle. They'll be a really good group on the offense, and I think that would be a solid pick for the Titans. Next up is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their biggest need at this point is safety, but I'm not sure if they'll do that, actually. I mean, there's some good safeties here. I really like Andre Cisco out of Syracuse, but I mean, they could go tight end because they only brought Tyler Eifert in for one season, and there's some really good tight ends in this year's draft. But really, I think they'll go offensive tackle to protect Trevor Lawrence, and Walker Little is really solid, and they won't be mad at getting him with this pick at all. He is a great tackle out of Stanford. I just think he'll fall a bit this season. I don't think he'll have the best year, but still, that's a good pick. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings, and they need a safety, I think. And Hamza Nasildreen he's a really solid safety out of Florida State. Florida State has some solid players going in next year's draft. I think that's where he's going to go. They have Harrison Smith at safety, but they don't really have anyone else. Harrison Smith is getting up there in age also, so they're going to need someone good at safety. Next up is the Chargers. They could definitely take offensive tackle. Carman is a very good offensive tackle from Clemson. Alex Leatherwood, some people are really high on him. I could even see Alaric Jackson sneaking into the first round. Cornerback, right now they have some good cornerbacks. They just have some older cornerbacks like Chris Harris, Casey Hayward. Patrick Surtain is still on the board, so that would be a good pick. But actually, this is kind of a surprise pick. I'm taking Chuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State. I expect him to have a really, really good year. He had a great year last year. The Chargers only have Austin Eckler, who isn't really a true running back one. Like he's a good running back, but I think that they should pair him up with someone else. And Chuba Hubbard is just so good, and this would be a great pick for the Chargers. I think he would fit well with their team. So some people might be a bit surprised by this. Some people might not expect it, but it's what I think will happen. Next up is the Steelers on the clock, and you might have seen me just going over to quarterback. I think the Steelers will get a quarterback to eventually be the Ben Roethlisberger replacement. I could even see Roethlisberger retiring after the season if he has a bad year. And I think Purdy, I like some quarterbacks better than Purdy. Like I like Tanner Morgan, I like Kyle Trask, I even like KJ Costello. But Purdy's a solid quarterback, and I think the Steelers would really like Purdy, so that's why I have him going with this pick. Next up is the Colts. It says their biggest need is quarterback, and it says their second biggest need is cornerback, so that's why I think this will be an easy pick for them. Patrick Surtain is still on the board. He is a really good cornerback. I think, in my opinion, he's the best cornerback in this class. So that's an easy pick if he's still on the board. Next up is the New England Patriots, and there are a few different routes they could go. They could go quarterback, but I don't think they will do that. They could go quarterback, but I don't think that they will. I am a bit higher on Jarrett Stidham than most people are. I don't think they'll go. They could go receiver also because Edelman is like 33 or something. And they don't really have anyone else good at receiver. They didn't really address it in the draft. They could also go defensive line with Christian Barmore or Twyman from Pittsburgh. Or linebacker, I could also see. Dylan Moses, I expect to have a really good season as long as he doesn't get injured again. And the last position I could see them going with is cornerback because Paulson Adebo is still on the board. I think it could be very likely that they go Paulson Adebo, but I think they will go Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver from Minnesota. Bateman is a very, very good receiver. And now that Tyler Johnson's gone, his production is going to go up by a lot, I think. So he's just going to have a really good season, I think. Tanner Morgan has emerged as a really good quarterback. So, Bateman will be one of his favorite targets next season, and that's why I have him going at this point. Next up is the Bills, and this is an easy pick. One of their biggest needs is cornerback, if not their biggest need. Paulson Adebo is a really good cornerback. That should be an easy pick. Next up is the Packers, and they need receiver. They didn't take a single receiver in this year's draft, which is just unbelievable. And with this pick, I think they'll be getting Justin Ross. I really like Justin Ross. He plays with Trevor Lawrence, and I think Trevor Lawrence throws to him a lot, so he has good production. Now that T. Higgins left, he should have even better production, just like Rashad Bateman. He will fall a bit on the draft day. I think people expect him to go higher, but still, that's a really good pick by the Packers. Next up is the Eagles, my favorite team. And so this pick is assuming Jason Kelce retires, which I do think he will after the year. Creed Humphrey is a really, really good center, and he would be a replacement for Jason Kelce. He would probably be an immediate replacement if Kelce does retire after the season, which I think he might. So I think that would be a pretty easy pick for the Eagles if Creed Humphrey's still on the board because he's a really, really good safety. Next up is the Seahawks, and they need to protect Russell Wilson. Like, Russell Wilson, he was sacked, like, top 3 in the league this season in sacks, I think only behind Matt Ryan and, Kyler Murray. I think he was sacked the 3rd most times in the NFL. They need to protect him. I've been taking Alex Leatherwood. I think Leatherwood will probably be regarded as one of the first round players for next year's draft. I think he can be a really good offensive tackle. Next up is the Buccaneers. And I don't really know. Edge rusher? I mean, I feel like a lot of these guys, if they were going to take them, it would be a reach. Quarterback, I mean, I don't think they'll take quarterback because I actually think Brady will stick around for one more season. Tight end, because I think Gronk will retire after the year again. But I mean, they'll probably trade away O.J. Howard, so they might actually get a tight end. What else could they get? It lists wide receivers one of their biggest needs, but they have one of the best wide receiver duos in the NFL, so I don't think they would take a receiver. Looking at linebacker, they could definitely take Dylan Moses. But they took Devin White in the 2019 NFL draft. And we're going to go back to edge. And I'm looking at Quincy Roche. I really like him. Transferred to Miami from Temple, I believe. 6'4", 235 pounds. He's a really good player, I think. I think he'll go higher than most people expect him to. So I think the Buccaneers will take him with this pick. Next up is the Cowboys, and the Cowboys really did not address secondary that well in this year's draft. So I think that's where they're going to go with this pick. They could either go cornerback, or they could go safety. I think they'll go safety. I really like Andre Cisco out of Syracuse. I said that earlier, but I think he would fit well with their team. I really like Cisco, like I just said, but I think he's a really good safety out of Syracuse. I think that would be a good pick. Next up is the New Orleans Saints. So the Saints could be looking at a QB, definitely, because I think Drew Brees might retire after next season. So they could also go receiver because Emmanuel Sanders is like 34. Seth Williams and Rondale Moore are both there. Cornerback, they really need to address secondary other than Marshawn Lattimore. They really don't have any that good cornerbacks, but I think getting like Eric Stokes or Caleb Farley, I think that would be a bit of a reach. At linebacker, Dylan Moses, they could go after him. It's just he's coming off an injury. So unless he has like a really good season, I'm not sure if he'll get drafted in the first round. I think he will have a solid season, but I don't really know. But looking back at quarterback, they could go for KJ Costello. I think he'll rise a bit in draft boards heading into next year's draft. I'm not sure about De'Ara King. I think Tanner Morgan can have a good season. He can move up. Kyle Trask, I think, will have a really good season. But I think it will be linebacker. And this is assuming that Dylan Moses has a good season. If Moses doesn't have a good season, this pick doesn't make much sense. But I think Dylan Moses will have a really good season, so they take him with that pick. 3 more picks now. The San Francisco 49ers are on the clock. So some needs for them are safety. But I just think if they took a safety here, it would be a reach. Who else? Cornerback. But again, this would be a reach. On the offensive line, though, I think this is where they're going to go. Wyatt Davis, I think he has proved himself to be a first-round talent. He's a guard. He's a really good guard for Ohio State. He's proved himself as a first-round talent, and I think that would be a pretty simple pick. So now the Ravens at pick number 31. And so edge rusher, I feel like if they took any of these guys, I mean, the only guy I could see him taking would be Aiden Hutchinson, but I don't think he's that good. They could also go Xavier Thomas, but I don't think he's that great either. It lists tight end as a big need. I don't think that's a big need. Cornerback, I mean, Eric Stokes and Caleb Farley, I've been talking about them for a bit now, but I just think, again, they would be reaches. But I actually want to look at, linebacker. So look at Charles Snowden right here. 6'7", 235 pounds. At linebacker, he can blitz. He can come back in coverage. He's shown that for Virginia, and I think he would be a really, really good fit. He's an unbelievable athlete. He could be. I think he could rise in draft boards. He could have a really good season. So I actually have them taking him. And now the final pick of the draft. The Kansas City Chiefs are on the clock. And so they could definitely go cornerback because they didn't take a cornerback until late in this year's draft. But again, like Eric Stokes and Caleb Farley aren't the best cornerbacks, and I do think it would be a reach if they took him here. Um, they could go interior offensive line. Trey Smith is here, which I don't think would be a reach. So that could be the pick. Defensive line, defensive tackle. Barmore is solid. I really like Jalen Twyman out of Pittsburgh. So that could be a good pick. But I think that they will go receiver. I think they'll go Rondale Moore out of Purdue. I think they'll do this because Patrick Mahomes is probably about to get a huge contract next season, and they're going to need to let some people go, and I expect one of the positions they're going to let go someone at will be receiver, so they're going to need to get someone, and I think that'll be Rondale Moore. So that is going to be the whole first round of the draft. Here, I'll show it to you guys again. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.